booktube, this is Kelly. Thank you so much for watching my channel, Books I'm Not Reading. I am here today to do a review of, I hope you can see them all. This is the Barsetshire Chronicles by Anthony Trollope. It's a 6-book series, and I'm gonna do my very best to make this a spoiler-free video because I really want you to read these books and have this incredible experience because it is such a wonderful, wonderful series by Anthony Trollope, and I would have never read it had it not been for booktube and people talking about how great Anthony Trollope was. And so yeah, so I gave it a chance. I would also like to help you prevent making some of the mistakes that I did with this. I think I read the first book in the series, which is The Warden. I think I read it in 2020, and then I read the next book in 2021, and the third book in 2022. And then I went an entire year without reading anything, and then I read the last 3 books in the series earlier this year. And I would say this is not a great way to read the Barsetshire Chronicles. You like reading projects and you want to take it on in a year, but I definitely wouldn't go a whole year without waiting to read the next book of the series, because as the series goes along, all of these sort of different plot lines are slowly coming together, and they're all there in the last book in the series. So one of the things I wanted to say as well is Anthony Trollope is so different, or at least this series, 6 books are the only books I've read by Anthony Trollope. But I find it so fascinating. He is such a different writer from Dickens and Gaskell, probably the authors. I've read more Dickens than I've read Trollope. I think I've only read 4 Gaskell novels. So so he's kind of in the middle there between them. This series is so different than some other Victorian novels, especially Dickens and Gaskell that I've read. These are all very, for the most part, a pretty rural setting. And it's not a series in the sense that there are exactly the same characters. You follow the same people, all 6 books. Like, we go to a different part of this fictional county in England, and there's usually a side plot in London, which I think sometimes is necessary and sometimes is not. But the one thing that I feel like really sets this apart from other Victorian novels that I've read is that Anthony Trollope talks to you as a reader in the midst of these books. Not in all of them, but in some of them more than others. You know, assuring you like everything's gonna turn out fine, or whatever the case may be. And I just loved that about him. I just loved that he was kind of brave enough to cross that divide. It feels so modern to me in some ways to actually just directly address the reader and be like, don't worry, you know, it's all gonna work out. Some other things that are really different about the Barsetshire Chronicles from other Victorian novels that I've read. Again, it's more rural, and it's also very heavily focused on clerical life in the Victorian Church of England, so there are a lot of there's a bishop and there's a dean and there's a archdeacon and all these different kind of people. There's a warden. And so there's all these kind of different people at different levels. There's parsons and vicars and I would say, if that is intimidating to you, I just kind of got to the point where, I mean, obviously, the bishop is the most important person in this particular part of, in this particular county. He is supposed to be supreme or whatever. But as far as like where the other people are in the hierarchy, I just kind of rolled with it. It was just like at a certain point, I'm more interested in the characters than necessarily what their title is in the Church of England. And so I just kind of went with it. Because it wasn't something that I was very familiar with. Another thing I would say about this series, it has some tremendous love stories. It has great humor. Anthony Trollope is so funny, and the characters, it feels like Dickens in the sense of all of these different people, and having them be, not always, but a lot of them are very, very well-developed characters. And especially because he gives himself the time. Dickens didn't write a 6-book series, so we don't know what that would look like. But Trollope, like, he has time. He has the time to help you understand some of the characters. And some of the characters, will fall away after a book. But many of them are very important characters in the final book in the series. Now, originally I was going to rank these books for you, tell you which one's my favorite, which was my least favorite. And honestly, that would be like trying to choose a favorite child out of 6. It's very difficult. So there are a few things that I'm gonna throw out there. But I really want to encourage you to give this series a try. Because it has been one of the most rewarding reading experiences in my life. So the first book, which is by far and away the shortest book, is The Warden. Now, this is the one that I read in 2020, so I don't remember it as well. And as much as I want to, I can't just stop everything and reread it. But the Warden, who is Septimus Harding, is a character who he is in charge of. I don't know what, like almost like a hospital, a nursing home for retired clergymen, and there's questions about how much he's getting paid, and was that money supposed to go to him, or was that money supposed to go to the people in the actual hospital itself? So what I would say is, because this is such a short book, you really should start with this one. Katie from Books and Things did a whole like week-long series about these 6 books, which I will link to at least her introduction down below. For that, which was great. But I would say it is important to try to read these in order. There are characters in this book who do show up in the 6th book. So anyway, so it introduces us to a lot of, it kind of sets the stage, I guess, if you will. And again, it's tiny, so just read this one. It's probably, I don't know. I want to say it's my least favorite book in the series, but it's also the book that I read the longest ago. I mean, 2020, like, what do I remember from reading in 2020? So yeah, I need to give it another, I need to return to it again, after having finished the series. The next book, though, is just such a fantastic book. And that is Barchester Towers. Of course, I have the Oxford World Classic. I can't have everything in the same edition, which was kind of annoying. But anyway, so I would say this is the funniest book in the 6-book series. We are introduced to a new bishop, the Prudies, Bishop Prudy and his wife. And his wife is horrifying in a hilarious kind of way. This one is the most, I think, clerical focused. of the series, because, and in part because it takes place in Barchester, and that's like the big city in this primarily rural fictional part of England. One of the things that Katie from Books and Things had to say about the clerical aspect of this book and of the series in general is comparing it to today's like office politics, which I thought was really perceptive. Again, I didn't have that when I was reading this book, so again, I'd like to go back. This book, though, does have one of the best villains, I would say, in the series, in Mr. Slope. Yeah, he reminds me of a character from the old Curiosity Shop. But anyway, so Mr. Slope, I think he's only in this book. You guys can tell me down below in the comment section if I'm wrong, but it's fantastic that, yeah, like we get to experience him in all of his villainous ways, and then move on from there. But anyway, so Barchester Towers is primarily about the new bishop coming to town, and how like it's just a massive change. It's like when you're suddenly getting a new boss, and they have very different ideas from what you were doing before in the office and or workplace, and it just sort of throws everything up into some upheaval. There is some love stories going on in here as well, but I think for the most part, the thing that I took away from this book was just the really fantastic humor and the hilarity and the kind of chaos of it. All right, the next book in the series is many people's favorite book in the series, Dr. Thorne. I'm not sure. Again, I read this one in 2022, so I don't know. I do really love this book, though. Dr. Thorne and his daughter, or his niece, Mary Thorne, are really incredible characters. And they live in a rural, it's a more rural setting in the series, and they are friends with the local squire and his family, the Greshamberries, and so Dr. Thorne is, takes care of Lady, or I don't know, the squire's wife. I guess she's not officially a lady, but Mrs. Greshamberry, who's a bit of a hypochondriac, I seem to remember. There is a love story in it that is great and wonderful. I know some people have just read this book in the series, but again, I would encourage you to start over in the series. You could reread Dr. Thorne if you want, and then read the rest of the series. Dr. Thorne is the book that I feel like is the most maybe able to stand on its own. There's not a ton of reference to prior, characters who were introduced in the first two books. So I guess if you only want to read one, you'd be missing out on a wonderful reading experience. But this one feels like it's on its own sort of thing. Anyway, swoony, dreamy, and a really fantastic book. I really like Dr. Thorne, and how he takes care of his patients, and the sort of decisions that he has, what he thinks of his niece, who is illegitimate, and he thinks and he knows that she is so much better than many other characters. This is also where we first meet Miss Dunstable, an heiress, who just feels free to say whatever the heck she likes, and causes a lot of chaos in this book and some other books in the series. So I do love Miss Dunstable. So the fourth book in the series is Framley Parsonage. I absolutely love this cover. It was not made obviously for the book, but it is a very, very appropriate cover for it. Maybe the best cover for all of the books that I own anyway. So this focuses on just kind of two storylines. Mark Robards, who is a rural clergyman, lives in a different part of Barsetshire than the other books, and he lives. He and his wife and their children, which is also great. Like, it's great to have a main character that's already married, right? So it's his part of the story is not the love story. That focuses on his sister Lucy, who comes to live with him after the death of I think their father. Anyway, so but Mark Robards as a clergyman, it makes you think more again of the clergy in Victorian England as a job. It's a job. You get paid a certain amount depending on like where you are in the hierarchy, how big your parish is, that sort of thing. You get, and you don't have a lot of say in how much money you make, but there's opportunity, like there's upward mobility maybe. And Mark is definitely one who wants that upward mobility. He wants to move in these like kind of elite circles, and unfortunately it gets him into a lot of trouble. And so the question throughout most of the book is, what is going to happen? The other story involves Lucy along with Lord Lufton and his mother, Lady Lufton. And this is another one of those stories where there's a lot of questions about who should be able to marry who, and the situation. We are also introduced to Mr. Crawley and his family. Mr. Crawley is another rural clergyman, but kind of lower, a little bit, a step down maybe from the position that Mark is in. And he and his family are incredibly poor. And so anyway, but they are going to play they are the main focus of the last book in the series. So it is important to get this kind of introduction to them and to see what they are like. So loved that part of it. Loved how supportive Mrs. Robards is of her husband Mark, and just it's not like she's some extravagant woman. I don't think she's necessarily interested in social climbing, but like her husband is. Book number 5, The Small House at Allington. This is such a special book. Wow. This, and I really don't want to say very much about the plot in this one because I don't want to spoil anything. And by the way, like, I have been looking at the back of my editions, and you should not read, don't read the back. Don't read the back of any of these books, because it will really, I think, ruin the reading experience and the storyline. Another beautiful Penguin Classic cover there. But this focuses on Belle and primarily Lily Dale, who live with their widowed mother in the small house at Allington. Of course, there's a big house at Allington where the squire lives, who is their uncle. And he has plans for Belle, and Lily is making her own plans for her life, or what she thinks her life is going to be like. And I think what I loved so much about this book is that and I mean, there's just some hilarious like side stories going on as well. Johnny Eames, like, in part of the book is living in London, and you know this is the part of Barsetshire that he's from. He grew up with Belle and Lily, and but yeah, he's living in a boarding house, and there's just all these like very comical characters there and stories, multiple stories going on there. But I feel like in many ways this is a book that breaks all the rules that of what we expect a Victorian love story to have. And I just love that he was like gutsy enough to do that. Lily Dale is one of Trollope's most admired heroines. But yeah, so it's an incredible book. I just don't really, this one especially, I don't want to spoil for you because I want you to just go in and, yeah, it's just, it's really, really incredible. By the way, I think I probably gave all of these books 5 stars on Goodreads. I'm trying so hard, you guys, not to just make this like a gushing video. Which is very, very difficult to do. So finally, we get to the last book, which is by far and away the biggest book, The Last Chronicle of Barset. Again, look at that beautiful cover. I just love it. And this is where we really focus on the primary plot, although there's all kinds of subplots going on in London, in Barsetshire. So yeah, it's... But the main character is Mr. Crawley, who we meet in Framley Parsonage, and he somehow uses a check that isn't his, but he can't remember where he got the check, how he got the check, and so, but he, you know, like he really does feel like he hasn't done anything wrong, or at least if he did something wrong, like it wasn't intentional. He didn't intentionally mean to do it. I don't know if he was absent-minded. His head is on higher spiritual things. I'm not sure. He's also he's definitely the poorest character, the poorest family in the series, I think. And he is incredibly well educated. He teaches his children to read Greek and study the classics and things like that. And so it's very interesting, this contrast between their poverty and their education. But yeah, he is very stubborn. He does not want any legal help. He has a fantastic relative. I'm not gonna spoil the name for you. But yeah, he has a relative who says, "Oh no, I'm a lawyer, but I won't be your lawyer." Like, but is kind of like secretly trying to solve the case, if you will, about this check. Anyway, this book, of all of them, you would have no idea what was going on if you just read The Last Chronicle of Barset. Because it feels like everyone from the Warden on, almost everyone, is here. Some characters have more of a role than others, which is fine. It's nice to just kind of catch up with a few people and see what's going on. There's also quite a bit with the Bishop Prudy and his wife, and their marriage as well. So not much has changed since they first got to Barchester in terms of their relationship. This is the only one in this series that did make me cry. I was just so moved. I was so moved by some of the things that happen in this book. But it's wonderful to see the Grantleys and the Warden. I have talked quite a bit in this. I wish I could have made a separate review video for each of these books, but I just mainly want to encourage you to give them a try, see what you think. The Warden is usually people's least favorite and they stop there. Katie in her series really recommends reading the Warden and then going straight to Barchester Towers, which I think is a really good idea. And I wish I had done that because really once you get immersed and involved in the series itself, it's very hard to stop reading. I'm so glad that I read the last 3 books. I read them one every month for the first 3 months of the year. So it's just tremendous. It's just tremendous. And so please read this series. If you have read this, tell me what your favorite book in the series is down below in the comment section. As always, if you don't feel comfortable leaving a comment, you can give this video a thumbs up as a way of saying hello, or you can leave an emoji in the comment section. I'm not really sure what an appropriate emoji would be for the Barsetshire Chronicles, but anyway, so thank you so much for watching BookTube. Remember to be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and I'll be back soon with another video. Bye.